Welcome to Surgeon Syndicate. If you're paying attention, you know that you only make money when you work. It might be great money, but it's dependent on you. The information on this podcast will help you solve that. We interview experts and provide analysis into financial freedom through commercial real estate. Why? To help physicians like you thrive. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Surgeon Syndicate. We are here today with Chris Long of Longyayrds. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Excited to be here.
All right. So today, talking about outdoor industrial storage, and Chris has kind of taken this mysterious yet relatively simple idea and kind of streamlined it into a great business model. So, Chris, let's start out. Tell us a little bit more. How did you get into the industrial storage business? Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think many great opportunities are found when there's a problem and you need a solution. And that's how I stumbled across my business model. So as a contractor for licensed carpenter, started off in the trades young, basically got my ticket as a carpenter, got in renovations, and named a company after my grandfather, Conrad Construction, ran that for 10 years. During that point, I learned a lot about construction development and also loved real estate, always loved real estate, and basically got into, bought my first house, turned into a duplex, bought my second house, turned into a duplex. I was like, okay, I like cash flow. I love real estate, but very quickly realized I don't like tenants. I just don't like tenants at all. It's a headache. If they don't pay in Canada, they have all the control. The average time it takes to get rid of a tenant in Canada is 12 months. So then all these kind of perfect flavors merged together when having problems with tenants, still love real estate. And then I had a problem with all my construction equipment. I had tools, equipment, trailers at my house all the time. And my wife, every time we have family come over, she's like, Chris, clean up our lot. It looks like a junkyard. We can't have stuff everywhere. And it was like every week. And I was like, hey, this has got to end. Like, come on. And, I lived on a 2-acre lot, but even my neighbors, I could tell driving by, they weren't excited to have family come down the road. So finally, I just put the few dots together. I had this commercial property. It was 10 acres near the house. And I'm like, you know what? If I need a yard, I'm sure somebody else needs a yard as well. I'm a simple guy, simple thinking. And I was like, I'm going to build this business. I'm going to do contractor storage yards. And sure enough, I'm trying to pitch it to investors like, hey, help me with the startup. I'm going to do contract storage yards. They're like, you're crazy. I've never heard of that. So I'm like, it's a storage yard. So nobody thought it would work. So I had to sell my dreadful real estate portfolio to, and get out of that to start up Longyayrds. And then sure enough, it was a success. We leased out. Now we're fully leased. I turned that property from $470,000 to $3.6 million. Now it's easily worth closer to 4.55. And, we have over 10 locations coming in the US. We're going internationally. And so that's how it started. And that's where it's going. I'm just excited to spread the story.
And that's, it's amazing how many people started out in small multifamily or individual residential and quickly realized that tenants can be problematic. We still have one fourplex, and just last night, my wife comes in because she managed it for a while. And then I took it back over, and then we recently just finally passed it off to a property manager. Because it used to be really easy with the tenants we have, but now she comes storming in last night, like, why am I getting texts from tenants? I'm like, I don't know why they're texting you. They're not supposed to. They know. I know. I don't know why they do it. So it's crazy how those things happen. And it's completely different when you start to move to your tenants or businesses. I mean, that's so when you look at these storage yards, what all kind of different tenants do you have, and what kind of things are they storing?
Well, that's a great question. So in different markets, what we're seeing is we have different client and avatars, and we're always working on the data to try to who's our most common client. But because there's such a surge and there's such a gap in the supply and demand of what we have so many people that need our service. It's wild. I used to think just for guys like me, there's a lot of guys like me, but there's also a lot of corporate clients. There's a lot of homeowners that are hobbyists. There's a lot of dealerships, like the list just goes on. The niche in the market, the problem that we solve, if you go to just go on Crexi or LoopNet tonight, or anyone listening, go and search for a yard space between 5,000 and 20,000 square feet. you can't find it. It doesn't exist. And then try to find it fully fenced in, secured month to month. That's the problem. So then there is a big market of people that need just that type of space. So when you ask me who needs it, just think of anyone who needs that space, and that's a long list.
Oh, that's incredible. Because so it sounds like some of it are just individuals who have stuff they want to store.
Exactly. It's a lot of small businesses, individuals, but then you have corporate clients. We got propane dealers, we got dealerships, we have logistic companies. I mean, the list just goes on. And it's really unique. Our model, we've built it to adapt as part of our core values is adapt because our fencing moves around. So we try to make it as simple as possible as well, because the clients change. And sometimes, depending on your infrastructure, where you are with the city, you could be outside of the city, right? And then it's a land bank play as well. But what happens is you buy the land, you put the model on it, and then the city starts to mature and grow out. And as that happens, your clients mature and they change. Now you got new builds, new permits, you got a different type of clientele. Where if you're in the core of a city, you have more seasoned clientele that are more logistics, more operational heavy. So it's a fluctuation on where you're at. And there's just so many factors, and we could study the behavior of our clients. This is wild, through tracking where they go, where their most popular places they hang out, the traffic routes they take, and we have the data from our clients at our first facility, how long they're willing to drive. So we merge all of these, and we've built feasibility tools to look at a property now within minutes, give us a checklist, credit score, almost a credit score. It's like, how does this work compared to this location, and how to underwrite the real estate as well. So it's just been a massive learning curve that we've been getting better at every time more data comes our way.
That's pretty cool. So let me just back up a little bit. So for anybody who's listening who really hasn't heard of outdoor industrial storage, the idea here is, if you think about things you may see more often are self-storage, and some people use self-storage for their home stuff and some people for their business stuff. But then bigger than self-storage, you get into flex space and warehouses and all this, but some of this stuff can be stored outside and people are looking for a place to store it. And what you're saying is right now, if you're looking for outdoor storage, typically what's going to be available are really big spaces if you can find it, or leasing out just empty land, but there's no security, there's no infrastructure to it. So what you're providing now is a fenced space with security cameras, with lighting, and it's instead of one person leasing like the whole, this vacant acre, they can lease the size of space they need and have their space fenced in separately from everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm always trying to figure out the best way to explain this. Like anyone that has a self-storage unit, they get it, right? They go to their unit, they open up the door, they put their stuff in, they close the door, and there's a lot of doors like that beside them, and that's self-storage. Ours has a lot of the same language, except when you go to your unit, it's a fenced-in yard, and you're opening your gate, and that gate is completely enclosed with its own yard that's private, with a camera, with power, and we could bring you an office or a container. That's the Longyayrds model, and it solves many problems. There's three of the biggest problems, because a lot of these small businesses, if they go to try to rent something, there's a gap in the marketplace like we talked about, but as well, it's month to month. It's on a 2, 3, 4, 5 year triple net lease. A lot of these small businesses, they're growing. They're going through change. They need something that's affordable and adaptable to their business. And it's not, so it's month to month. There's no tenant fit up costs, right? So you don't have to add all the stuff. You need an office, you got it. You need power, you got it. It's right there. You can move in the next week. It's what you need. So there's no fit up costs, and it's month to month, and it's adaptable. It changes for you when you need it. So we just solve so many problems. I can't believe this doesn't exist. Like, it's just, how come no one's doing this? There are a few people doing it, but they're not doing it like we're doing it. I mean, now we're international, and we got a great team, and we're just looking for great partners to expand.
So not only is it just outdoor storage, if you want a storage container, so you can have indoor storage, you have different options for the size of the container, or is it just one container? And you also said you can bring in an office, and that all gets dropped in your yard.
That's it. So Longyards, we have long boxes and long offices that fold and unfold in the yard. And what's really unique about it is now there's different zoning in different areas that have different requirements. And, you got to approach it from a modular mindset, just because to satisfy some local building requirements. If it's fixed, then you need a concrete slab and you fix the actual office of the container. But if the zoning allows it, then you can have it a little bit more mobile. And if that case, these are the units. They're 7x10 is our smallest. They go to 7x20, and they're foldable. They're adaptable, just like our core values, just like the fencing. So if you're a small landscape business, you need a place to put your secretary and keep an eye on inventory. It's really simple. And one of my favorite, I'm gonna go on a little tangent here, but we're very advanced with tech. I say advanced compared to the marketplace, and we're always trying to improve and innovate. But we have cameras. So if you're renting a yard from me, let's say you're a mason and you're renting a yard, and your yard's 50 by 100, 5,000 square feet. You get free camera access to our facilities. So you can watch if have either your crew coming in or a new client that wants to see the type of stone you have for display. You can watch them on the camera. You could text the gate, open the gate from your cell phone, watch them go into your yard, and you can have a grid system on your fence. So all your piles of stone, you could just be like, yeah, go to B3. That's your new colonial stone. And you can watch this whole process all from your phone. That's Longyards, and we're just getting started with innovation.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So not only, depending how you run your business, somebody could go and pick something up on their own out of your lot, or you could watch your own crew and be like, no, 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 no.
Well,
that's not the one.
Exactly. And if you have, you got a nice trailer that is your brand new trailer, you just bought it, it's a nice paint job beside your stone, you can have motion alerts set up near your trailer. So if anyone even goes near it, you'll get an alert on your cell phone that has a different vibration that lets you know that someone's in that zone in your yard. So it's pretty cool to the level of depth that we can modify the security customizations.
And then, so the size you're talking about within the big yard, everybody's got their smaller space that's fenced off. And you said that's completely modular. So if somebody's business grows and next month you're like, hey, I've got all this more stuff I need to store, you can expand their fence out and their space can grow.
Yeah, exactly. So think of like a shell. All the fencing in most cases around the perimeter is fixed, and on the road around the yards is fixed. But perpendicular to that, between the yards, we like to do a modular design where things can move. And it's not like a temporary fence. This is more heavy duty, and it's just part of our innovation of strength. So it's still secure. Like a storm's not going to move this. This is fixed, but it's made to adapt, which is just really cool because that's what these businesses need.
Yeah, and I think we see a lot of the same thing in some of the other industrial areas like flex space, where a building can be re-demised if you have open space and one tenant needs more space and you can move that wall over. So you've kind of done the same thing outside, where it's a controlled space, but it can be changed to fit the needs of the tenant over time.
Exactly. So like, great businesses, I think, are built for the client. It's what's best for them, And if you think about and put your client and tenant first, and you build a business that's, flourishing for them, that's when magic really happens. So it's not about, we try to put that first. And I built the business around the mindset of what do I need as that small business, and that's just, I think, part of the magic of it.
That's pretty cool, because you came in with a problem to solve and started solving that problem, not just for you, but for other people. So when did you do your first lot?
When?
Yeah. How long ago did you do your first lot where you started with yours?
It's funny. I bought the property in 2017 with my brother. We were partners, and, just good old brothers. We're like, couldn't figure out what to do. He wanted to do one thing, I want to do another, all in love. And, but we just couldn't figure it out together. So we sat on it for a while. I think I started developing in like 2019. It almost took 2 years because I had this vision, and my construction company was, doing what my construction company's doing. And sometimes you have this great vision, but you just don't have the time or the resources. And I finally pulled the trigger and I said, it's a funny story because actually in 2019, I wasn't sure what to do with my brother in the business, and we couldn't agree. So we're like, let's just sell it. Let's just get out of this. And another storage guy wanted to buy it, and we had an offer, and we accepted the offer. And then so that could have been it. That could have been the end of Longyards, but he got into an accident. I don't know what happened. And then he pulled out of the deal. And then by some twist of fate, I'm just like, forget it. I'm going all in. I literally sold everything I had, went all in, got it done. And then I'm like, oh my God, this really works. I'm going all in again. That's when I sold my house and went to Florida, and here we are. So it's quite a journey, but that started 2019. And I kind of, just slowly picked at it. I didn't have the resources to really go all out. And I literally bootstrapped it, being a blue collar, just, grit guy that I am. I was literally with chainsaws and, cutting down trees and digging holes, putting up fencing. Like, I got this started, all means necessary. And we cut the ribbon October 1st, 2019. God, was it 2021? Jesus. Yeah, 2000, no, 2000, I should know it. 2019, I believe, is when we did the grand opening. And I mean, look, it's just been great since then.
And that first one was in Canada?
Yeah, the first one's in Ottawa, Canada. Absolutely. And now we're under construction in Central Florida. And now we have over 10 between a territory secured and fully opening. And some of them, depending on the location, could be a few months. And depending on the land, it could be a longer period than that. So yeah, we're growing.
So now you're looking at some new models. We were talking about this a little bit earlier to begin partnering with people and to grow the business even further. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so like a lot of people love the model, but they just don't understand the real estate part of it. And like an entrepreneur, every time there's a problem, I gotta think of a solution. And so what we created was the go long or go home guarantee. And what this does, it secures your territory, and we give you the tools, the know-how, and we introduce you to an agent to go and find a parcel in your area. And you're in it for $5,000. You understand how to underwrite the commercial real estate. You understand how we look at our tiers of land. You start to understand how we track our clients. And it's not just the real estate, it's making sure that our avatar and the real estate is lining up and in a good location. And the best part is if you don't find nothing, we give you the $5,000 back. So, it's the go long or go home guarantee. And then we partner with you. And we have two lanes to do this. We either do a franchise, which is, more of the franchise route. We could do land arbitrage. So we can go and lease up a piece of land. You do the $50,000 franchise fee, and have royalties, and that's a great play. It's actually a faster return on your cash flow. Or a lot of people love the real estate play, and that's when we'll actually become a partner. We'll do a joint venture partnership because we were actually approved by the SBA. So if you go to the federal SBA website and you put in Longyayrds, we're there, and they removed that directory. So no, they stopped that, but we got approved. We got on there. And now we can get approved by SBA. So how cool is it to buy industrial dirt do the Longyayrds build out for only 10% down with a partner that helps you from A to Z? And that's what we've built, and that's what we're doing.
That's pretty cool. So if somebody were looking at this and they're like, wow, I like this model. This sounds very interesting, but it's kind of scary because we talk about this on the show since we're talking to doctors a lot, that when you start getting it's this whole thing with doctors. You're used to being an expert for so long that when you move into something new and you feel like I have to be an expert to do this. And so pulling the trigger to actually do something gets really hard for doctors when it's new. So if somebody's looking at this and they're like, okay, this sounds really cool, but wait a minute, I don't know who's going to rent this. I don't have a construction business. I don't understand it. I can see where you say, and like, where does it go and how do I run it? So this is all built into the package.
Our second franchisee is a doctor. And one of our partners right now is also a doctor on a corporate property. And I don't know what it is, but doctors love our business. And we, so a lot of them too, when they want to get in real estate, they either trying to be an LP and a partner. And it's like, here, sit in this lane, buy these shares, and you get a small slice, and that's your return, whatever it is, 10, 15% IRR if you're lucky. But first of all, our numbers are crushing it. And with us, we do everything from A to Z with you, and you own up to 80% of the real estate. So you're owning it. It's just a different play completely.
So now when you start down this road, what's the time requirement to run this? I mean, it sounds like when you got a lot going on in the yard, this isn't a set it and forget it business. This is a business still needs some work.
Correct. So, it's the closest thing to self-storage because we're in a lot of self-storage masterminds. And one of the biggest things that they have to think about is obviously the management. And some of their best clients that they want are actually small businesses. And that's who our clients are for the most part. And because they're independent, they take care of things themselves. If there's a pothole or their gate's not working, they'll grab their socket and their wrench or a shovel and they'll fill it and you never hear about it. And these are the type of clients that we have, and these are the type of clients you want. So first of all, we're highly diversified. So if my top 3 clients stop paying me tomorrow, I'm still cash flow positive and I'm still okay. So I'm highly diversified. I have some of the best clients you want in the business, and we're as automated as you can be. You literally go up to my gate, you scan the QR code, right? You get a link, you fill out the document, you upload your credit card, you make your payment, the gate opens, you're good. Like, it's as hands off as can be. And so, I mean, you still require part-time boots on the ground, but we even help organize that. We help hire them, train them, and we have great management systems because we built an entire franchise system with checklists. So, and everything you need. So, I mean, yeah, it's like turnkey. Plus, we take care of the construction. I was a GC for 10 years. We go there, we do the build out. So we're as hands-on as we could be. And by being a partner, we don't get paid until you get paid. We put our skin in the game. So what kind of trust is that? Like, you know, if we're in it with you, we got to make it work.
All right. So when we start looking at real estate for one of these, is this, and maybe I'm going too far on being a simpleton, on just trying to understand it.
Yeah.
Is, you know, a lot of the outdoor industrial storage that you see is off the highway. It's on the edge of town or outside of town, but you talked about there being a need for it within the city also. Is that something that is more useful? I mean, I think of some of the cities that you have old industrial areas downtown, or maybe they were factory areas and now they're not doing so well, and so you kind of get that inner city demise. Are these areas that are also useful for this, or most of them on the edge of town?
That's a great question. So because our model is literally made to adapt from the inside outwards, we understand to solve this big problem, we had to get creative. And every parcel of land, as long as the zoning works, is an opportunity. You know, now you can't buy the land for $1 million an acre in the middle of like Chicago and do a Longyayrds. That's extremely difficult. But what you can do is you can find plots of land that, you know, have certain issues, oddly shaped. And if that opportunity presents itself, you could still make a deal work. And you could do a revenue share with the landowner. And this is where part of our partner and internal network get these resources and our team to go out and try to make these deals happen. So, you know, whether or not it's an oddly shaped property in the center that doesn't have much more higher and best use, we can go and do a revenue share and make a deal happen. On the corporate, more of the land banking side, we want to be on the outside, the perimeter, and that's typically a lot where you see the industrial pockets anyways. And it's not just on market, like we're geared to go off market and even future land use. So in certain areas, like let's take Nashville as an example, it's one of the hardest places to find industrial real estate. It's just so hot. So we have to put in other gears. It's either the land arbitrage or the future land use, and that takes a little bit longer. So depending on your market, there's different opportunities that present themselves based on the asset class.
That's interesting. So when you start talking about some of the future use, that then maybe if it's on the edge of town, that right now a yard is the best use for it, but 10 years from now, after the city grows, it might be now it's got a better use, and you can move the yard further out and sell that piece, and it becomes apartment buildings, or because you got a pretty good chunk of land there. It's not a tiny lot.
Exactly. You got a pretty good chunk of land. It's not a tiny lot. And you want to, you know, go where, I think Wayne Gretzky says it best, go where the puck is heading, right? So in some pockets, industrial real estate, you know, it's hard, right? It is hard. It's a hard asset class we're going after. We have a great problem that we're working on solving. And that's why we created the Go Long, Go Home guarantee. It helps us work through these weeds as a team, because you need people and different approaches to get as creative as you can, and tactically logistics to get in there and just tackle this problem. So, but the future land use, yeah, you want to go where the city is going. You want to go where the growth is, and you want to go where the contractors are going and the small businesses. So that's just one of the many keys that we have as a resource to go. If there's nothing on market, if we can't do a joint venture, if the off market's not working, we got future land use. So by partnering with us, like, we're going to make a Longyayrds happen. It's just how long is it going to take?
Okay. Well, you know, it's interesting because we were talking last night about flex space, and, you know, and it's one of those hot classes where they're building these basically contractor garages, and in some cities it's just going wild. And you hear a lot more about that. But you're solving a lot of the same problems for somebody who has stuff they need to store. They may need a small office space, some inside and some outside storage. You basically have the ability to make the whole thing happen and maybe even be a little more flexible and give a little bigger space than just your little flex warehouse.
That's right. So, I mean, it's funny when you mentioned you're talking about the mastermind, someone brought up Longyayrds, and my wife, she has family on vacation. They were talking at a restaurant about industrial real estate, and somebody else brought up Longyayrds in Mexico last week. So it's just like, I don't know, something's working here. But in any case, what's really unique is that as long as there's land that works, we could do a Longyayrds. So in our Central Florida location, we have 26,000 square feet of warehouse, and there's, around six acres of land. And we just run the highest and best use. So not only are it's just pure land, this is warehousing with land. And because of our expertise, our contacts, our database now, we look at that warehousing and we run the highest and best use. Like what's in the area, what's working, what's there, a supply index, what's the shortage. And for us, it was climate controlled self-storage. So we let the numbers do the talking. We ran the numbers, ran the highest and best use. And so we're doing a Longyayrds with climate controlled self-storage on that property. So it's not just storage yards. It's what's the highest best use, what's the demand, and what's the opportunities in the area, and we'll make a deal.
That's awesome. That's I think sometimes where people get hung up is you're like this, you get a shot at a property and it looks like it's a great property, but then you kind of get hung up on what is the highest and best use and what's it really worth, and how much can you make it pay out for. And it takes some experience to know all those different things. And I think that's where it can get really tough with our commercial mastermind. We were talking last night, and that's where your name came up because it was this kind of a funky property and was being used for a bunch of different things, and was kind of this process of going, well, how much could this property really generate? And looking at it in all these different ways, and and depending on how you divvied it up and who you were renting it to, and really what you could rent it for, those numbers change dramatically. And so, yeah, having somebody that this is what you guys do, so this is what you do all day.
Oh my God. Yeah, we have a funnel, and it goes to the feasibility, it goes zoning, local building requirements, and then feasibility, right? So before we look at a deal, it has to match all of our checklists. And then once you get the feasibility, this tool that we've built can allow us to analyze real estate within minutes and tell you the future market value, the NOI, and then you could assume the debt. And right now we're assuming SBA, but you can use different debt facilities. And then we go through our acquisition assembly line, which allows us to go through all the filtering due diligence. Is there gas lines, easements, setbacks, anything that's going to kill the deal as quick as possible. So by knowing all of these different steps and sequences allows you to identify real estate quickly, tell you what you can and can't do, how much it's going to cost, and just move to the next one. And that's part of, work with Longyayrds. We give you this education. It's like, here you go. We teach you commercial real estate for as little as $5,000. It's sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? But, anyways, yeah, it's really powerful.
Well, that's great, because that's where a lot of the time people get hung up is it's how much time do you put into a deal trying to figure it out? And then it becomes that time sunk cost. I've seen deals where people take a not great deal and they fall in love with it, and then we'll spend hours and hours and weeks and months trying to figure out a way to make it work. But basically you're coming to it going, okay, let's identify, rule yes or no as quickly as possible, and get down to where we have something that we can turn into a revenue generator.
Exactly. We take the guessing out of it, right? You don't want to know, well, how do the banks work? How do the lending? How much can it make? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? All these questions someone's going to be asking themselves about. You don't have to ask that. Like first of all, we're going to educate you so you understand all the elements. You're literally going to know how to use our tools and then identify a property and underwrite it yourself. And then we're there for you all the time for accountability. So like if you have any questions or something's not working, we're a phone call away. We're with you. And that's, like when people try to want to get into a business, they want to understand it. They want to know it's simple. And you look at Longyayrds, you zoom out, Like it's a simple business to get and understand. There's only so much risk or unknown that you can have. And we just, by removing the unknown and the risk, we just make it as simple as possible for all of our partners.
So going back a little bit to the financing, because I think we probably have a lot of listeners who've never they've heard of the Small Business Administration. They know there are supposedly these loans out there to help you as a small business, but most doctors have never really dealt with one. And I think even within my old practice, we looked at one a couple times, but it turned out, we went another direction. So how exactly is an SBA loan different from any other business loan going to the bank? And how does that process work? What are the advantages of that over just standard bank financing?
Yeah, SBA is extremely powerful. First of all, it's the amount of money you need to make a deal happen, right? Let's look at a piece of property that's $1 million and you need $700,000 for the construction, the build out. And then, you need carrying costs. How long until it's profitable? And all of our underwriting tools answer all these questions. But let's say you're in it for $2 million total. Well, most banks, they're going to want 35% down or whatever the case. Right? So you got to come up with like $600,000-$700,000 for this deal. Using SBA, you need as little as 10 to 15%, right? And then it factors in, you could even have a small salary of $40,000 for the year to just go out there and oversee it and get it going. So the Small Business Administration is built to help and support small businesses, and their loans are facilitated for that. And what does Longyayrds do? We support small businesses, and our tenants are month to month. So that's why we're on the SBA directories, because all of our business vision and mission is to support small businesses. So I mean, it's powerful. It's there for us to get started, and because we're buying real estate, our term loans are actually amortized over 25 years. So we can even do a lease on a 10-year loan using SBA, but to buy dirt, they'll do 25 years on industrial land with 10 to 15% down. And that's almost unheard of. So not only do you get all the business support, but you get a great lending package that we as partners provide to you. The funny thing is that I'm a Canadian. My business got approved by SBA, but I can't use SBA because I'm not a green card holder. So part of my creativeness was to find partners and like, hey guys, look, I'll provide the know-how, you provide the SBA and the underwriting and let's be partners and let's make a deal happen. So that's how, just like starting Longyayrds in the first place, I just solved another problem.
That's great. So you had everything, but you just needed an American.
I needed an American to add my wife. I told her if only you were an American, babe. But we're Canadians and we came down here and it's all about solving problems. So that's what we're doing.
That's great. It's, it's one of those things that sometimes you stop and you go, God, he's a Canadian and he knows more about the things our government provides to us to help us succeed in business than we do. There's, and especially as doctors, we feel dumb easily because, you went to all this school and everybody thinks you're brilliant. And then you keep hearing about things that you go, what? Never heard of that before. Because our specialty gets so narrow where very different.
My second franchisee, he's a doctor and he had a health accident, right? And it was in that realization that he knew if he can't go into work and perform, he couldn't keep the bills going. And he said, Chris, I want something that if I get sick or something happens, I want to be able to take care of my family. And that's what we did. We offered that service. And now we can, we're on the path to own real estate that's going to pay him every month, no matter if he's sick or healthy. And I mean, as a doctor, you're only in so much control, so much. You help everybody else, but we're helping creating a business that allows, you to help you and take care of yourself. And so it's easy. You got to think outside, doctors that I know we're all in our lanes and engineers and lawyers as well. But once you start getting that cash flow and you start owning those assets, it's just a different world you're in.
That's interesting because if you look at comparing this to disability insurance from what he basically came to you and what he was needing was to continue to bring in some money. And disability insurance is probably the craziest, most expensive insurance you'll ever buy. The number of provisions within it that if something happens to actually collect it, that the number of stories I hear where they're like, oh, well, you're not disabled enough, or you didn't have the appropriate job specific rider and all these different things that It's one of those things that makes my head hurt. And then you're wondering how good your insurance agent is. And the amount you pay for it over 20 years um, is definitely as much or more than it sounds like it would take to get a long yard. So when the long yard's not only does it give you that insurance policy that's actually real cash flow along the way, not just an if I get hurt.
Like you could be in a Longyayrds for as low as $50,000 as a franchisee with the land arbitrage. It's just wild using SBA and can go up to 250 for $2.5 million asset. It's wild. And here's the crazy thing. My location's in Canada. I moved to the US 3 years ago, and I went to my location about 3 times in 3 years. When I say this thing is a business that runs itself, that's the proof, that's the evidence. I am living it. And that's why I'm like, I got to do more of these. So I would
You
love for a doctor to sit down with me and say, okay, let me show you what I'm working on. And then I'll show them, okay, let me show you, and I'll actually show you my location and the numbers, and let's compare apples to apples. And it would be a great conversation.
That's so how many do you have an employee there who checks in on it or does it, if you need stuff moved around, what's the requirements there for employees?
Yeah, so it's usually one visit a week at the minimum, sometimes two, depending on the season. If there's a lot of landscape maintenance required, depending on the location. So yeah, it's usually about 12 hours every 2 weeks for a
Okay.
part-time employee. 1 4-hour day, make sure you cut the grass, things are going good, and then the second week is an 8-hour day, just to make sure. But that's on an average, and depends on the size of the facility and if there's other warehousing you got to keep in mind. But it's a rule of thumb. But yeah, you have one part-time employee that has a checklist they follow. They upload the pictures, make sure things are, that we give them. It's like, make sure this is being operated the way it should. But I mean, I don't know if you ever parked your boat or RV or went to a self-storage facility, but they don't have full-time staff kind of guiding you where to go. It's a pretty automated business, and that's what we have.
Okay. What's the I forgot my question. Um so how big of a metro area? How big of a city do you need to support one of these?
That's a great. So we're doing a lot of research and development, and I could tell you the smallest would be we wouldn't want to go anywhere at this point under 50,000 people for a population
Okay.
within a reasonable distance. Just while we're getting our metrics and our data, and we're really getting dialed in to increase our confidence. But there's no limitation. I'm in Ottawa. Ottawa has a population of over 1 million. And there's a lot of great stats about Ottawa. But there's nothing shy to say we can't go into certain areas. As long as, we go through our funnel and we've identified the area to work, and we're going to go there and we're going to make a deal happen.
Awesome. Yeah, so you don't need a major metro area to make one of these work.
Yeah, it's different than like your mom and pop self-storage where I see people on social media like, oh my goodness, 5,000 people and here's your facility. It's like, now we need a little bit more growth than that. I mean, if you think there's too many people around you with a yard, then, not the demand and need for a yard is that high. And I like to say the business is simple, but we make it look simple because we're good at what we do, but it's not easy because you don't want to spend $1 million on a piece of industrial real estate that you're not sure is going to work. And we know
Yep.
people trying to do what we're doing and they're not leasing up. And because we have the data, we've gone deep into building the processes and systems, building the franchise to have a level of confidence that we could bring it to an area close to you and lease up. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and it's like an iceberg. You see the Longyards fencing, but there's a whole 90% of the ice underneath it as to why that location works. And that's what we do.
Oh, that's awesome. So if somebody wanted to learn more about this, how do they get a hold of you, Chris?
Yeah, they could email me, clong@longyards.com. Check out our website, longyards.com. And I mean, happy to talk to new partners and go from there.
That's awesome. And I have to say, we talked about this earlier. Your waiting room to get on a Zoom call has audio and video that I didn't know you could do that on Zoom. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. So you're using your tech there in lots of different ways.
As a carpenter, I'm a little proud of myself sometimes that I'm actually excited about tech. And, where 2 years ago, the last thing I want to do was look at it. So I appreciate that.
That's great. All right. Anything else you want to add here before we wrap it up?
No, I appreciate it. If any doctors are worried, just, look at our podcast station, go on longyards.com. You can look at our podcast, you can learn more. And just, don't be afraid to reach out. We don't bite. We want to educate you on the process. And I'm pretty certain there's the Longyards that could be at a location near you. It's just, is it going to be you?
All right. So thank you so much again. This is Chris Long with Longyayrds. We'll include that in the show notes, his contact information. I hope this has been valuable to you. And thanks again for joining us here on Surgeon Syndicate. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike.
Do you care about paying too much in taxes? And would you like to save more of your hard-earned dollars? Here's what we found. We found that most financial professionals have a one-size-fits-all solution. So the question is, would it make it easier for you to have someone tailor your tax solutions to your individual needs so you can keep more of your money and do what you want with it? That is exactly what we do at 𝐥𝐸LStra.
As surgeons, we know the difference between routine surgery versus life-threatening interventions. And I want you to know that I've used 𝐲𝐸LSD and her team for my personal financial intervention, and I love the results. I would do you a disservice if I didn't recommend them to you.
We'd love to help you, so let's jump on a call and see how we can collaborate. Simply go to www.𝐥𝐸LStra.com/McManus and book your free call today.
This has been an episode of Surgeon Syndicate. If you got value from this episode, you know other surgeons are hungry to become job optional, and you can help them by sharing this content today. Schedule a call and we can make a plan. Looking forward to having you with me on the next episode.